Hey everyone, Nico here with a bunch of different games that I tried out demos for and that I wanted to make a video on because these really scratched my itch for Castlevania style games. And so each one of these is a Castlevania-like. And the reason why I'm calling it a Castlevania-like versus just being like, oh, it's a metroidvania or oh, it's a classic-vania is because there's a mix of both. Like some of these games are just metroidvanias. There's some of these games that are classic-vanias. And then like with the first game we're going to look at, Chronicles of the Wolf, it's actually kind of a mix of both. So if you're a Castlevania fan like me, I'm sure you're no doubt into games like this because indie games are really keeping the genre alive. Konami hasn't done like anything with Castlevania other than re-releases, which is fine if you re-release your back catalog. But honestly, you really need to make some new entries. And I know there's a 3D Castlevania that's being heavily rumored right now. But man, the indies are keeping it alive for me. So I had that itch for a Castlevania. So I dove into some demos and I'm here to show you some games that I thought were pretty good based off the demos. So like I previously mentioned, the first one is called Chronicles of the Wolf. And this is actually the developer's second game that is inspired by Castlevania. The first was Wallachia Reign of Dracula. So if you haven't played or heard of that one, definitely check that one out. But this is a little bit different than that because this is more of the Symphony of the Night style of Castlevania title. And it's inspired so much by that game that there's actually a familiar voice that you'll hear throughout the game.
For hundreds of years, the Rose-Cross Order has shielded mankind from the evil which lurks in the shadows.
That's right. That's Robbie Belgrade, the voice of Alucard from Symphony of the Night. He also voiced a character in Wallachia Reign of Dracula, so the developer clearly has a good relationship with him. But it's always nice when there's like a nod like that. I appreciate him as a voice actor. But anyways, getting into the gameplay, this one kind of felt structured like a classic-vania, but it has all of these systems of a metroidvania. So you play as this character who has like a dagger, which also have sub-weapons, and then you also have a magic or ability meter. I guess we'll just call it mana. So you have a bunch of different attacks that you can do. And there was a town in this demo. I was able to engage in some combat and bosses. There's little orbs you'll pick up, which are kind of like the hearts from Castlevania. They serve as your sub-weapon ammunition. But this was one that I really enjoyed. It did seem to have some other things going on that you're going to see throughout the demo that are more modern elements. Like there was a side quest or two when I was in the town. There is some branching paths. I don't know just how much of the demo is like authentic to how the game's going to be. You know, a lot of the times with demos like this, they kind of build a demo just to show off a bunch of different styles of their game, and it's not really true to the experience that you're going to have when the game is fully released. This one kind of felt that way, and there's another game on this list that also felt that way, but I had fun with this. It's a pretty difficult game. These save points aren't really plentiful, so you do lose a decent amount of progress if you meet your demise. But overall, this was one that I did really enjoy, and I'm looking forward to the full release at some point in 2025. And if you're interested in any of the games in this video, check the pinned comment below. I'll have links to each of them. If you're interested in trying a demo and you don't see one, don't bother asking me. It's just not available anymore. Some demos on Steam are only available for a limited time. Maybe it's like Next Fest or something like that, and then they take the demo down. So if you don't see a demo, no worries. It's probably not available anymore. Then the next game we're going to be checking out, this one is called Darkest Abyss. And this one is pretty much verbatim what you would expect from a game that's trying to mimic the style of like Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse on the NES. And I would also go a bit further and say that this one really reminded me of the Bloodstained Curse of the Moon games. So that's probably more the inspiration than Castlevania, but obviously Castlevania was an inspiration for Bloodstained, so we're kind of going full circle here. But in this one, you play as this female character who has, again, a bunch of different sub-weapons. You have your HP, MP, and XP bars at the top. I couldn't really notice a difference when I would level up in terms of my character. I know this is just a demo and my stats are probably increasing, but it felt very minimal when I would level up. But, you know, it's got that system there, so whatever. And you can see over the course of the demo, and you can also notice it at the top of the screen, that you are also going to have additional characters that you will recruit and be able to switch to. You actually do unlock another character at the end of the demo, but then the demo ends, so you don't actually get to try them. This one was a little bit of a shorter demo, but it was a nice slice of what the game has to offer, and that's that classic-vania style gameplay. It plays pretty authentically to like the 8-bit era, as in it doesn't quite introduce you to all of its mechanics very well. It does give you the gist, but it doesn't explain or have any information, from what I can tell, on the sub-weapons. So it has like that trial and error method of learning what they do. I didn't really like that because there was one I picked up that was like a doll that you hold out, and I have no idea what it was doing. So if I don't know what something's doing, I don't like it and I don't use it. So maybe put something in there to at least explain the sub-weapons, even if it's like an in-game manual or something like that. But this was one that was a lot of fun. Even though it was short, it is catering to a different audience. It's not a Metroidvania style. It did look like there was branching paths, which is, again, like Dracula's Curse or the Bloodstained Curse of the Moon games. And so this one scratches that itch for me, and I enjoyed it. It controlled really great. You also have a Mega Man slide. The combat felt pretty fun. There was pretty decent variety of enemies as well. And then the boss fight was pretty good at the end of it. So I'm looking forward to this one. This was Darkest Abyss. And then the third game I have here is actually an early access. So this one doesn't have a demo available. This is the early access version 0.6 that I'm playing here. It's, again, supposed to come out at some point in 2025. And by come out, I mean the 1.0 release, which is when you leave early access. For those of you that don't know, is version 1.0. I originally played Toziuha Knight Order of the Alchemists at version 0.5. And I actually ran into quite a few issues. So I put it down. I made a quick little short on it, but I didn't go really in depth. It was only a minute-long video. And this was one that I was like, I see the potential, but it still needs some time in the oven. And I do still feel that way, but some of the issues I was having were squashed with 0.6. This one is catered to that audience that's looking for the Metroidvania style that was very popular with the GBA and the DS. I mean, this is like verbatim inspired by Castlevania Order of Ecclesia. The way you acquire your new abilities is very similar to how Shinoa absorbs her glyphs. You just get under it. You can actually see the glyphs. They look almost like they're ripped right out of that game. And just as a whole, almost every element in this game feels like it was lifted from one of the Castlevania titles. But it also does have this kind of alchemy system going on that I'm not even going to attempt to explain, because honestly I don't even fully understand it. But it allows you to incorporate different elements to your attacks. And then some enemies are weak to those, some are actually strong to those. So I didn't really use them at all. And the reason for that is because if you have an element on your whip that an enemy is strong to, you'll actually hit them for 0. Versus just not using any, and then you'll always damage all the different enemies because you're just doing physical attacks. That was a bit weird. But this has the equipment system. There's a town with side quests and a shop in it. It really is catering to that GBA DS era, and I really love those Castlevania titles. So I really like this, and I definitely recommend you check it out, right? But what I will say is that wishlist this and keep your eye on it until maybe it gets a little bit closer to release, or for when it releases, and see how it pans out, because it still does have some issues. It has some balancing issues. It has some bugs in it that are super annoying. There were some that I encountered on 0.5 that I didn't encounter on 0.6. So I do know that the developer is working on this, making progress, the game's improving. So I can wholeheartedly say, definitely wishlist this and keep your eyes on it, but maybe don't pick it up just yet because it's a little bit rough and that might turn you off from wanting to play it at all if you do play this current version that's available. Then the last game I have for you in this video is called INAYAH: Life After Gods. Now this one is that more modern style of metroidvania that incorporates a lot of elements of Dark Souls. You have your healing charges, which you can see in the upper left under your health bar. You can parry, dodge roll, all those sorts of things. There's a pretty complex set of upgrades that you'll acquire, and there's different ways that you apply these to your character. The game introduces a lot to you over the course of this demo, almost too much where it gets to be confusing. They even give you access to 3 different weapon types, which you can quickly switch between. They ask you if you want to do like a weapon wheel or just press a button and switch to the next. There's a lot of different options here, and the gameplay seemed like it was going to be really combat heavy. So I like that about this. And the other thing that really drew me to this is that I love hand-drawn art. And the art in this is beautiful. Not just the gameplay art, but also the hand-drawn art in the cutscenes that I was able to see. The only thing that I will say about that, though, that seemed like a bit of a downside, is some of the hazards and things like that are kind of hidden into the environment. Like, there was times where the spikes didn't quite stand out to me, and I would get hit by them before I was like, oh, wait, that's a hazard and not part of the background. So that's the only real downside to the art. But this demo, much like the first game, I felt like wasn't really a good example of what this game probably has to offer, simply because I think it's chunks of the game at different points kind of like stitched together to give you some variety and let you see all of the different things it has to offer, which is fine, but it's a pretty complex game, and it felt a bit overwhelming because there were abilities that you can carry out with the different weapons that, like, I didn't know. Like, I wasted a couple minutes at one point because I didn't know these little purple grappling circles could be grappled to with the flail. You know, the flail lets you grapple. The sword gives you almost like a double jump. It's like a little bit of a high jump as you slash up. And then there's these fire fists that allow you to climb walls like Ninja Gaiden, Ryu, Hayabusa style. It's just, there was a lot here going on, but I did enjoy it. But it also was very like Dark Souls hard. I got to this boss, which I'm going to assume was at the end of the demo, and I tried like 4 or 5 times, and I played through this on normal. There is multiple difficulties in the demo, and I got destroyed. Like, I wasn't even coming close to defeating this boss. Like, I was hitting him and hitting him and hitting him. It didn't matter which weapon I was using. I was barely doing any damage, and he would hit me, and it would like take off like a third or a quarter of my health. It was pretty insane. So hopefully that's not a sign of some balancing issues with this one, but I really did enjoy this. This was the last demo I played before I decided to make this video, and this one, just the art alone just really drew me to it. So I have high hopes for this one as long as they do a good job with the balancing and they make sure to introduce the things you need to know in a way where it's laid out to you in a helpful way. It does have a lot of tutorials, but there were things that it didn't teach me. And again, I think that's because they stitched chunks of the game together to make this demo and try to give you a lot of variety. But this last one here was INAYAH: Life After Gods. It was really fun. I enjoyed all of the games on this list. They were mostly pretty different too. Like for Castlevania likes or Metroidvanias or classic-vanias, whatever you want to call it, I feel like there's a lot of variety in the few games I showed in this video. So hopefully I introduced you to something that you are now looking forward to. If I did, let me know in the comments below which one of these games is your favorite. All of them is an acceptable answer as well. But I appreciate you watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun playing through these demos and curating this list to share with all of you. So appreciate you watching. Have a good one, and I'll see you next time.
I need to examine the body.